Serious people who check university applications. What do students tend to ignore put in, that would otherwise increase their chances of acceptance? Story 1. I read and evaluated applications for the University of Chicago and now, for the last 6 years, have helped 300 students apply to college as an admissions consultant. Using the insight I gained within a top 5 admissions office, I see so many students leave off extracurricular activities because they worry they're not prestigious enough. They leave off hobbies as they didn't realize the 10 hours a week they spent on independent art projects could count as an extracurricular. They don't mention their family obligations, such as having to take care of their 4 younger siblings for many hours each day as their single mom works 2 jobs. For more insight on what might count on your college app, see my post here. They underestimate hours spent on an extracurricular activity. While it is obviously bad to exaggerate your hours, it's not good to underestimate them, either. Last year I worked with an Olympic athlete on her applications. In looking at her original list of extracurricular activities, she had included 15 hours a week as an estimate for her commitment to her sport. I was surprised to hear how low of a time commitment that was, and she remarked, "Oh well, my mom and I have to travel 4 hours round trip every day just to get to practice. 4 hours each day. Add that significant travel time to your activities list, girl. If you too have an activity that requires travel time, you can include that time in your estimated hours week time commitment on your applications. Check out my guide to the activities list for more tips like this." They get generic letters of recommendation, or they pick a teacher that doesn't add a lot of value to their application. Most top universities want 2 letters of recommendation from teachers, one from a STEM teacher and one from humanities. Ideally, these teachers are from a student's junior year or had the student for multiple classes years at school. Further, many teachers use a template to write their letters of recommendation, so most letters of rec are very generic. They include stuff like she was a good class contributor or he will excel in college without any concrete details as to why, as most teachers are not paid to write letters of rec, must write a lot of them, and take shortcuts to churn out letters in time for the deadline. To get good letters of recommendation, it is key that your teacher personalizes the letter. Ideally, they'll also compare you to your peers. For example, he is the single most driven student I have met in my 10-year career, and he is absolutely determined to accomplish his dreams of XYZ, or she is the brightest math student I teach across all my 7 classes this year, etc. How to get those sort of letters of rec? Send them a letter with detailed examples and anecdotes from your time in class. You can download my guide to getting good letters of rec for more tips. Their essays are generic too, because they fail to include how they think, feel, or view the world differently as a result of their experiences. I cannot tell you how many students' essays I've read that talk about football or piano or their research position and just gives an A to Z guide of their participation in the activity. Do you know how many other students have done the same activities? These essays all blend together and tell us little about you other than what we could have already gleaned from your activities list. One of my favorite essays from recent years started as just an essay about the student's participation in orchestra. After a lot of one-on-one brainstorming with me and revisions, the student wrote an excellent essay starting with really cool imagery about the origami artwork hanging from her bedroom ceiling before transitioning into her hobbies. She wrote something like, "Just as distinctly different are the origami shape 1 and origami shape 2 hanging above my head are my passions for activity 1 and music, but they both hang in my heart." It was more well written than that, but I'm pulling from the dregs of my memory. The essay turned out awesome, was super reflective of how the student thought, felt, or viewed the world differently as a result of her experiences and interests. And she's currently at an Ivy League university in part because she wrote an essay at the Ivy League level. Many universities use Chicago, Penn, Michigan, Columbia, Brown, Yale, Stanford, Cornell, Carnegie Mellon, etc. Ask why our college, or a combo between why our college and why your major. Be specific. I cannot tell you how many essays I read for U Chicago that were like, when I visited your campus, it felt magical. I was surrounded by students who were so driven yet friendly. As I explored your biology major, I found great classes like organic chemistry and intro to biology. And I just knew that such a prestigious university would prepare me for medical school. Blah 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 hull. This could apply to any school. Be extremely, extremely specific. Research the school extensively. Find classes that the university offers that you haven't seen at any other school. OChem doesn't cut it. Mention the curriculum core at U Chicago or Columbia, open curriculum at Brown for example, and don't just say you like it. Really dig into why that curriculum exists from a fundamental educational level and what sort of catalyst it will be for your own thinking. Search the school's online newspaper for some cool programs that other prospective students might not know about. Talk to current students' alumni if possible and incorporate things that you learned. Ask them what underlying qualities the student body possesses for U Chicago. It's a thirst for knowledge, and at Georgetown, it might be some Jesuit value, and evidence your possession of those very same characteristics in your essay. Mention specific professors under whom you wish to study research, and connect their classes' research back to your own intellectual interests. Better yet, email the professor, have an awesome conversation with them, and incorporate some element of that conversation in your essay. Don't think professors will give you the time of day. This strategy has worked for my one-on-one students at Stanford, U Chicago, Yale, Princeton, Penn, and many more schools. You can download my guide to emailing professors here. Bottom line, if the essay can be copied and pasted to fit any other university, be more specific. If you have any questions, I'm all ears, and if you're applying to college or graduate school and want to work with me one-on-one, check out my website at www.helpwithapps.com or engage with me on our applying to college. Story 2. Never write about the school you're applying to, write about yourself. Who are you, what do you have to offer, what motivates you, who will you be one day? There's a story that the folks down at Rice tell when they're doing tours. Their application has a little box in the middle of a page, with the instructions to fill the box with something unique that expresses why they should accept you. Back in the 80s, some kid filled the box with glue and then dumped uncooked rice on it, so that there was just a rectangle of dry rice in the middle of the app. They tell everyone this so that they know it has been done, and will result in your application being rejected immediately. Seriously, the admissions people anywhere see a dozen apps a day that talk about how good the school is, or its history, or its alumni, etc. They've seen all of it before, and none of that means a thing when it comes to what you will bring to the school. The objective of your average admissions department is to find students who will do two things: finish at least one degree, and become rich so they give back to the school someday in the future. If you can convince your admissions officer that you're not going to drop out, and that you're going to make good use of your degree, they're going to want to bring you in. The first part is mostly a function of your grades and test scores. If your stats look good, it's a fair bet that you'll finish your degree. If you're worried about how your stats look, use the essay to explain that you faced some hardship, or convey an anecdote about how hard you worked on a project. Be specific. Explain what you were trying to do, what made it hard, how you eventually made it work, and how it felt to complete it. The second one is where the essay really comes in. Unless you just wrote your essay about a hardship or hard work, then you want to write either about your love of a given subject, or about your dreams for the future and how you plan to achieve them using your degree in a given subject. If you really enjoy history, write an essay about what makes history so interesting to you, and explain your favorite obscure story about your favorite historical event. As an example, the assassination of Franz Ferdinand is almost glossed over in most textbooks as an event that directly led to the First World War, but the actual story of young Bosnia's attempts to kill him, and Gavrilo Princip's eventual success, is one of the most interesting things about the war. You only have about 2 pages, so you'd have to very carefully summarize, but there's not much better way to explain how a subject like history gets more interesting the deeper you dig into it. Edit. Thanks for the gold, kind stranger. First time gilded for me. Story 3. I didn't work in admissions, but I have worked in billing financial aid. They're under the same branch, enrollment management, so we had to go to a lot of the same event seminars. At one point, we learned that some students don't realize that financial aid is a possibility for them. Students coming from difficult backgrounds at huge schools with maybe one guidance counselor per 100 students don't get the help they need when applying. I definitely understand that a student might not see the point in telling the difficult story of their lives, but it can really help your chances. In many ways, all we have to go on to learn about you is that essay. If you've got average grades, no extracurriculars, and you write a generic essay about how you've always wanted to be in such and such career, you're less likely to be noticed. Don't be afraid to personalize your application. If you let the admissions team know that you were working 2 jobs after school to help your family pay rent, that really says a lot about you. We can read between the lines and see that's why your application may not be stellar in other areas. As a former billing counselor, I want to throw in some extra things here. 1. Don't be afraid to apply to your dream school just because you can't afford it. They may be able to give you more help than you realize. 2. That said, if you do get into your dream school, but the financial stars aren't aligning, really weigh your options before you take on that extra debt. You can transfer in from another school to save money. My college even specifically partnered with another and gave those students transfer aid, which typically wasn't a thing. Really research your options. Some colleges like mine, a private school, won't give aid to transfers, only those coming in as freshmen. But that could still mean savings in the end. Others are fine with transfer aid, and it's okay to ask them about it. A degree is what you make it. I wish that I could have said this to every student and parent who cried to me that private college I worked at was their dream school, and can't we please give them more financial aid? Edit. To be clear, I'm not mocking them, it was heartbreaking. We didn't have more aid to give. Please, think about your future. On more than one occasion, I witnessed a student turning down a large scholarship to another college for little to no aid from us because dream school. I couldn't tell them not to do that, so I'm telling you, please, a degree is what you make it. Look at your other options. Story 4. The strongest bit of advice for students applying to a European, particularly UK university course. Don't send a US-style personal statement. Applications in the US tend to be handled by admin staff, whereas in the UK by academic staff. These academic staff do not want to read several pages on your non-academic interests and skills. It's a waste of their time. Focus entirely on your subject-based interest and experience. It's often not even worth saying why you want to attend that particular uni on a UK application, unless it's due to the strength of the department or the teaching staff on the course you are actually taking. Story 5. UK uni admin here. Spell check, and check your grammar. People often forget to answer the most important question: what do you want to study? And why? You'd be surprised how many personal statements I read that are full of fantastic achievements, etc. But none of that matters if I can't tell what you're applying for. Also, lots of people put in all their wonderful extracurriculars but often neglect to mention work experience. This might just be a personal preference of mine, but I think it shows that you are a well-rounded individual who can work hard, take responsibility, and who is a little more mature. I think it's important as these are valuable attributes to have when attending university and being away from home for the first time. We are looking for well-rounded students after all, which doesn't just mean being able to play the trumpet and tap dance. Story 6. Alright, so I went to university, private Catholic college, very expensive. I took a work study in admissions, and I handled putting in transcripts, letters, ACSAT, etc., etc. The number one thing that kids like to just wimp out on is recommendations. They save so many asses when it came to kids being accepted. For example, Kid 1 has a 2.6 GPA, 21 ACT, has a great recommendation from a teacher who explains their struggles or their constant growth. Anything flattering that isn't too over the top. Kid 2 has a 2.9 GPA, 23 ACT, has a generic recommendation sheet from a counselor, usually just a blank sheet with someone basic info, only a simple recommendation signature from a counselor. You would not believe how many times the school would pick Kid 1. Having a personal educator saved them and got them admitted over someone slightly better in terms of academics. Character is looked at a lot by universities. Fun story, a kid got denied because he didn't get a recommendation letter. He sent a letter in that was like, pornographic in nature, smutty and just gross. I didn't get to read it sadly. Poor girl was the one who got it. He had to come and apologize face to face to everyone. Even though he lived like 400 miles away, his mom knew he wouldn't get reconsidered even if he apologized. She just wanted to make him eat for it. I have a lot of other stories about crazy admissions, haha. Story 7. I sometimes read scholarship applications for my alma mater, not admissions applications per se, but I think this still applies. Many students don't take it seriously. I was definitely one of those when I was applying for school. 5 essays, well I guess they get one about how much I hate writing essays. Those kids are immediately disqualified. People who need the money will take it seriously. And if you need the money and didn't take it seriously, well you're an idiot and I probably don't want you coming to my school anyway. The second thing people do is share things they absolutely should not be sharing. Let me tell you about how my friends and I do meth every day in gym class. Even if I wanted to give you the scholarship, I can't now, because meth addict gets full ride to X school by bragging about being a meth addict is bad press for the school. Just don't write about your criminal activity, okay? The vast majority of those are things like I think drugs should be legal because I smoke all the time, but there are a few like I killed a kid and no one knows I had to call the cops on that guy, which was definitely not how I wanted to spend my afternoon. The last bit of overshare is people talking about how they aren't inspired and don't try hard at their school. Again, you're an idiot. Why would you tell a school that you don't want to be in school? Why would you tell a school that you don't like school? Why would you tell a school that you think school is stupid? You are the stupid one in this scenario. On to what people forget to mention, there's probably a ton of stuff here. Most of the time people only talk about the right now stuff in their life. Describe how you overcame adversity prompts a kid to write about how in English class he had to read 3 books in 2 weeks. This is a shitty essay about you being a bad student. Later in his application, I see the kid's photo and lo, the kid is a double amputee. Write about that, you idiot. The more finished an adverse situation is in your mind, the more you no longer dwell on it, the better. That is an example of how you overcame the adversity. That kid. He just chose the most mundane and boring essay topics across the board, and he absolutely could have won the scholarship if he'd just written about his actual life. Others will say this, but you spell check, write a real essay with paragraphs and not a giant block of text. Know the difference between there, and there. Know the difference between your and your. Know the difference between peak and peak. Holy kids, it's college. Maybe know your 3rd grade vocabulary. Look, you should find an adult and talk to them about your essays. Have them ask you the essay questions, and just talk to them like a normal human about your answers. When you land on a story that seems compelling and you can talk at length about, bam, there's your essay. Unless it's about how you're a felon who hates school. I have to give this money to someone. Right, someone is going to get this scholarship. Make my job easy, please, and just omit all the horrible things you've done in your life. Write the essay as if you're trying to convince someone that you need some money to make your life a little easier because, well, your life has been hard up to this point. Here are a few examples of people who got the scholarship. Russian girl who fled ethnic violence in Russia to the USA, had to learn English on her own in 5th grade because her parents didn't speak it at all, and is now trying to major in physics. 40-year-old man who dropped out of high school to join the army and became a paratrooper. When he got back to the USA he became a firefighter and then a smoke jumper. He now wants to teach music. I love this guy. A black kid who grew up in white suburbs. His essays were fascinating. They were all about how everyone assumes that because he is a black kid growing up in white suburbs he's had a life full of racism. But he doesn't feel that way at all. Rather, he feels apart from the black community, and so he wants to be an African American studies major in order to learn about himself. He needed the money because his parents had been spending every cent just to raise him in a good neighborhood and they couldn't afford college. If anyone here has questions about their essay topics, he'll try to give you pointers. Submit your application online. I work in admissions and getting paper applications is not only annoying but it slows down the whole process. For one, the amount of spelling errors is alarming and we end up having to call people to see how the correct way to spell their first name. Second, as much as it sucks, sometimes paper apps get lost. Get lots in the mail, doesn't get filed properly, things just move a lot quicker online. Story 8. Wow, I can answer this since I work in American higher education. For graduate school, Recommendations are absolutely crucial, so be very careful with who you pick. It's normally the first thing universities look at. I recommend someone who will write passionately but honestly about you. It can sometimes be helpful to send your writer your resume and essay submissions as well, and if they're willing to look at and incorporate those documents, they're probably a good writer for you. Also, self-advocacy is key for your essay submissions, so don't be afraid of coming off as bragging. A lot of students try to be humble or even vague, which hurts their application since admissions doesn't have time to interpret their essay. If you have any specific questions about applications, feel free to ask me. Story 9. I have worked in admissions for the last 10 years for graduate programs at a Tier 1 U.S. university, so I actually feel qualified to answer this. There are variations in requirements dependent on program and school, but the general ones are 1. Application Form 2, Resume CV 3, Transcripts 4, Letters of Recommendation 5, Letter of Intent 6. Topic Essay possibly 7. Application fee. To address each of these independently, I will lay it all out. 1. Application form. This is usually very basic, but people make very stupid mistakes with it that can have serious implications down the road. Do not use an email address that you use with friends. Thinking that ML Plover 69 whatever will not be noticed or recognized as a My Little Pony enthusiast is naive. If necessary, create a very PC new one for your application. Unique ones can be a bonus though. I recall one that used the pre-chosen letters for the last round of Wheel of Fortune as being recognized favorably by faculty, for example. Ensure that all answers are correct. Many times people tick the box for are you using active duty military tuition assistance to fund your education, when they were actually using their GI Bill. This makes a big difference as you would be handled by separate departments. While these things will not determine the outcome of your application, they speak a lot to your ability to follow directions. 2. A standard resume is fine, but make sure to have someone check it over first. I have seen so many unique mistakes on these, from a handwritten one that appeared to be in crayon, to someone who misspelled bachelor degree with a 4.0 GPA, to one's missing dates of employment, contact information, and those that didn't change their objective from the last time they were looking for any job I can get. Honestly, I'm desperate. Again, the resume is usually not make or break, but attention to detail is important. One faculty member I worked closely with had a pet peeve about people who did not include their address on it and assumed they were homeless. 3. Some schools will only require the transcript from the school you graduated from. Others, usually more prestigious schools, will want all of them: any transfer credits, military credits, postgraduate work, certificates, community colleges, you name it. Be ready for this, as some people do balk at it if they have attended multiple institutions. They usually need to be official, which means they must come directly from the school you attended to. Ours. I cannot stress enough to ensure you are having them sent to the correct address as well. Going online and finding a random address will likely mean they get sent to someone who has no idea who you are, and tracking these down is a major issue as most universities are huge. Do not have them sent to yourself first and send them all together, as some will still consider these unofficial, and schools sometimes mark them as sent to student for. In my experience, letters of recommendation hold less weight than people assume. With that said, this is an area where I have seen some of the biggest mistakes. I have seen letters saying not to accept someone because they were about to be fired, those from little brothers again written in crayon, and those from employees of the applicant. It is assumed that anyone can get people to write nice things about them, but those with the most impact are, in order, academic references, supervisors, or those in the public eye. In other words, those that actually are staking their reputation on you in a way. Anyone who is simply a colleague except in exceptional circumstances. An underling, friend, pastor, rabbi, clergyman, perhaps different at religious schools. Family member, even if they are relevant, famous, does not matter one bit and will actually harm your chances. Make sure the reference is on letterhead and includes contact information. 5. Different schools and programs will have unique instructions, but the most common is why you want to get in, why you have chosen to apply to this program in particular, and what you hope to accomplish after completing the degree. My number one recommendation is that you follow all instructions implicitly. Consider this your first assignment. Spelling, grammar, passion, and content are all equally scrutinized. This part is why it is important to actually speak to someone familiar with the admissions committee if at all possible, as they can provide unique insight into what they look for, as it will change by program and department, even within the same university. I know of one faculty member who pretty much automatically accepted anyone who said that they were the first in their family to pursue higher education, regardless of previous academic performance. This is the make or break part. It gives you a chance to explain that you drank your way through first year 10 years ago, yet your professional career since speaks volumes about who you are. Perhaps you lost a family member while studying, you had to work 3 jobs as no one was supporting you, or any other hardships you overcame. The most important part is that you overcame whatever it was. You need to demonstrate that you are a capable individual that needs or wants this degree for a specific reason. The people reading these generally want to let you in, but they don't want to set people up for failure. GPA requirement is usually not a hard cutoff. Everyone is looked at holistically, so don't be afraid to apply to a program that you may not qualify for on paper if you are truly passionate about it. 6. If a topic essay is required, my only instruction is that you follow the directions to the letter and have multiple, qualified, people look it over. Again, dependent on program, this is your first assignment and is make or break. 7. Most will have an application fee associated with it. However, this can sometimes be waived under certain circumstances. It is not a bad idea to ask, but don't be disappointed if it can't. It is usually a lot of paperwork on the school side to make this happen, but if those you speak with feel for you they want to do it, again, a lot of times they simply can't, so don't push the issue. With that said, don't let a fee that is truly an investment in yourself stop you for applying to even a school you don't think you can get into. In conclusion, take the entire process seriously. I've seen too many people who either half it, assume they are entitled to it for whatever reason, or otherwise don't give it the care it deserves. I have seen people with multiple doctorates rejected for a master's program, so nothing is guaranteed. Put your best work and attention into it, and more times than not you will be accepted. Story 10. I ended up working for the admissions office partly due to my own application, so we'll throw my own experience in. Everyone is right. Write something about yourself. When I was in high school we were given an assignment to write our application essays, and mine was about dealing with depression and suicidal thoughts, and learning to be a better person and accept my faults and help others who struggle too. My teacher hated it. She said no way, it's too negative, but I felt it represented myself, so I submitted it. I ended up winning a competitive scholarship because they picked out my essay, which helped me get a job at the university. Anyways, I always looked for other students who felt like they took the time to really try their best, even if it wasn't the greatest writing or most interesting subject. They want people who at least try, and seem like genuine thoughtful students. It's better than copy-pasting some generic story about how great you are. TLDR, be honest, nobody is perfect. Story 11. Attention. Serious tag notice jokes, puns, and off-topic comments are not permitted in any comment, parent or child. Parent comments that aren't from the target group will be removed, along with their child replies. Report comments that violate these rules. Posts that have few relevant answers within the first hour, and posts that are not appropriate for the serious tag will be removed. Consider doing an AMA request instead. Thanks for your cooperation and enjoy the discussion. I am a bot, and this action was performed automatically. Please contact the moderators of this subreddit message compose. Tor AskReddit if you have any questions or concerns. Story 12. Be a human. Seriously, it sounds simple, but folks that get too canned with their answers and don't open up about what makes them a person usually don't do as well. Story 13. I used to work for a college women's hockey team. Part of my job was sorting the letters to the head coach from prospective players. If it was obvious it was a form letter, especially stuff like mentioning the wrong school coach, you automatically went to the bottom of the pile. Story 14. Don't just be a resume filler. 1 year in the environmental club, 1 year in the history club, 1 year in the robotics club, etc. shows you're just trying to con your way in. Find something you really enjoy and stay devoted to it. Show why you're willing to put in work for something you care about, not just go through the emotions. Story 15. I'm head of admissions for an optometry school. It's postgrad, so some things may be different, but the competitiveness is there with a sub-10 acceptance rate. So here is something you may not want to hear, but it's the truth. Your grades and test scores are going to be most important to most schools. There is a lot of talk on here about setting yourself apart. The first way you do that is by showing you can actually do the work. No competitive admissions department is going to accept you, no matter how many lunches you serve to the homeless, if they don't believe you can do the work. It's not something you can show in the 2 weeks you are working on your app if you haven't worked on it for the 4 years prior. Students with a stick-to-it factor look much better than those who make a 4.0 some semesters and 2.8 others. Your GPA might average out to a 3.5, but you are going to be scrutinized much harder than a student that just makes a steady 3.5 yearly. Consistency is key. If you did poorly early on, make sure to consistently increase your grades while also taking difficult courses. Now, how do you set yourself apart from the others that look good? For med school admissions we like to interview, but for those that don't have that option, essays are your way of letting you tell the school why me. The poster that talked about selling a used car a few posts earlier, your analogy doesn't apply to competitive admissions. You better let us know why you want to come to our school. It is on you to convince me why you want this position, because there are literally 10 others in a line waiting to have the shot you are getting. In your essay, make sure to tailor the reasoning to each school. Each one is different. Some are research-focused and some are mission-based. Make sure your reasoning for attending the school is laid out. Try to talk as little as possible about other people. I've read essays that talk about all the great things someone's parent did but gloss over what the applicant does. Then on the other side there is the applicant that looks full of themselves. I'm not saying don't brag, in fact do it like you're looking for a job, but make sure you aren't overzealous and are realistic with your goals. This next part applies to the 90 of schools that aren't Ivy League or STEM heavy. I see applicants who say they are going to change the world. Odds are you won't. And what then? Will you drop out when you see you can't cure cancer after 2 years of undergrad or med school? What is a realistic plan that will work if you stick to it? Thinking you will solve a problem on your own when there are literally tens of thousands of people working on the same issue is unrealistic and will sometime cause us to pass on an app. If you're applying to MIT or Berkeley and you make these claims, you better already have 2 years of research under your belt that is showing promising results. It's not easy, but we try to be as fair as possible and let those that deserve the position most from their hard work and results have the seat. To this day it still bothers me when I have to send rejection letters, and that I regret to inform you line is true. Bottom line, make sure your app lines up with the school. Don't think so much that this is a job you are applying to as much as a dating profile. We want to see you, your personality, what your future earning potential might be, how committed to us and yourself you are, and most importantly if you are a good fit. Writing this from a phone in bed, so please look over the typos. I'm not applying for karma here, just trying to help. Story 16 Part-time jobs. In this day and age, a lot of kids go to college never having held a job. If you did have a part-time job and can get a letter of recommendation from your boss, responsible, hardworking, gets along well with others, reliable, honest, it goes a long way. Story 17. This isn't directly related to the question being asked, but it's relevant race. Even if you exclude it on your app, they can still use it as a factor in affirmative action decisions based on your name or extraneous information. If they're unsure, they can interview you and exclude you based on your information. God forbid you include that you're Asian, your chances of entering many schools go down considerably. Story 18. You'd be surprised how often people use a copy and pasted response to questions, or even their entire admission letter. You can have the best application ever seen, but your chances drop instantly if your admission letter for University X still says for these reasons and so many more. I believe University Y is the perfect fit for me. Okay, so go to University Y, application rejected. Story 19. Show your effort, in any way you can. This doesn't mean to try those gimmicks or to pester the school with unsolicited materials, but do take advantage of every single opportunity and option they offer. Don't just do the standard or minimum amount of effort if you can do more. I was barely accepted to a top-tier liberal arts college, my first choice school, and I know with certainty that I only barely made it. I was put on the waitlist in April, when all the acceptances go out. The waitlist comes with an invitation to update your application with new material, but most kids check the yes, waitlist me box and don't bother to add any updates. I studied hard my last semester and got my best grades ever, took more AP tests. I continued with my extracurricular activities, advanced to a higher level belt level in Taekwondo, kept volunteering at the hospital, got an extra teacher's recommendation letter, wrote an extra essay, and I sent all that in to the school in May. In July, I was sent a letter from First Choice College, which gave me the option to remain on a summer waitlist. I have never heard of this before and haven't heard of it since, but I figured what's the harm. I sent the form back with a yes, and meanwhile I registered at my second choice school and prepared to attend there the last week of August. In mid-August, as I was almost ready to head off to college for orientation, I was researching transfer options and looked up First Choice School online. I saw that they offered transfer applications, but they weren't on the site yet. So I sent in a basic email to the admissions office asking, when will your transfer applications be available for the upcoming year? I kid you not, the next morning I got a call from admissions, who said, we got your transfer request, but actually, a spot just opened up for the fall. Do you want to take it? I was so shocked that I almost couldn't answer her, but I told her emphatically yes. They FedExed my information, I withdrew from second choice school, and 10 days later, I was on a plane to First Choice College, where I graduated 4 years later. While at that college, I worked at admissions and got to know the deans well. Almost assuredly, my extra efforts were what gained me entry. Apparently a girl had gotten into a car accident 2 weeks before orientation, and they were going to leave the slot empty, but I just happened to pop up. They saw that I was on the wait list, that ID updated my application, and with a transfer question, I clearly really wanted to go to their school, so I got in.